and
He's racist?
I don't mean because he's an owner of a team. I don't know. I don't know if he's racist. He may be, but
Oh.
that's not why I'm saying it.
Oh.
And by the way, I'm not saying it. It's actually Jason Collins that's saying it. Former NBA Senator Jason Collins, the first openly gay NBA basketball player. And it's so funny, man, that sometimes I read these articles and I always tell you guys that I read them and then it don't really, like, nothing really hits me. It's interesting to me, but it don't hit me in a way where I'm like, I have a very strong opinion about it. But it's good that I read it because it's actually, where is it? It's titled "Homophobia in Sports Has a Catch-22 Effect." So I read it, and Jason Collins was a part of that particular article. You know, some of the things he went and talked about some of his experiences before he actually came out of the proverbial closet. And then today I see this article. Jason Collins compares Tony Dungy to Donald Sterling. And some of you may be like, what? Tony Dungy? Because why? You like Tony Dungy. But here's the thing. And when I saw the headline, I knew exactly where he was going. And I know why you put such a headline on things, because it sensationalizes it and it gets people to click on it and look at it. But I understood immediately. Let's not mistake things. Let's not call things differently than what they are. Tony Dungy's a damn Jesus freak, right? And it's easy to kind of code prejudices, you know, and hide them behind certain things when you don't want to and you don't feel comfortable enough to actually articulate them as directly as maybe you should. What I'm talking about is when Tony Dungy said that he would pass on Michael Sam simply to avoid media distractions. And smart people said, but wait a minute, Tony. What do you mean, media distraction? Is it not a distraction when a dude beats his woman up? Is it not a distraction when a dude gets a DUI 2 days before a game? Well, what's the difference? You know, I remember a situation where Terrell Owens was accused of trying to commit suicide, and that became a quote-unquote distraction. So my point is, the NFL is not a virgin to distraction. So why would this one be any different? And if you remember, that dude went through a whole training camp with the St. Louis Rams, and yeah, it seems like old Tony Dungy was wrong. Seems like he was wrong. Jason Collins, he was talking with USA Today Sports about that same article I mentioned. It was a study about homophobia in sports, and Collins compared Dungy's thoughts to his thoughts on Sam to former Los Angeles Clippers owner Donald Sterling. And I'm going to read this to you. I'm going to read this quote to you, and you guys can either decide whether you agree with him or you don't. But I think it's very interesting. He said, if you ask Tony Dungy if he feels like he's homophobic or like homophobia is in his level of thinking, or if he's homophobic, he'd say no, end quote. Quote, well, if you were to ask Donald Sterling if he sees how his comments are racist, he said no. Well, he said no, too. Some people don't recognize their own racism, homophobia. His awareness and people like him are the problem. And my opinion is that he's right. He's right. The numbers, I think it's 1 out of every 10 male in this country is homosexual.
I think it's less than that.
Okay. For number's sake, let's say 1 out of 10. That's a nice round number. That's 10%, right? You got 50 people on the roster. That would mean 5 people if we just go strictly by the numbers. And in training camp, we're talking about 90 guys on the roster, which would mean 9 gay guys are in a locker room at any given time if you just go strictly by the numbers. Guys who won't come out or wouldn't have come out before they went into a draft or even before they entered college, under the fear that someone would say, yeah, you know what, I can get a defensive end who can play just as good. That, you know what I mean, that won't be a distraction, quote unquote, because he's gay. You know, meanwhile, the Seattle Seahawks went and found them a pass rusher that obviously If you read the facts to this kid from Michigan, to his case, yeah, he beat this girl up. Because ain't nobody running out of no hotel room saying he's killing my sister, for no reason. People don't do that. So when you have multiple eyewitness accounts that state those same things, yeah, I'm gonna make the reasonable assumption that he beat that girl up. All right, but that distraction came and went for the for the Seattle Seahawks, did it not? Yeah, it was a part of a 24, maybe 36-hour news cycle, and then we moved on. So, for a guy like Tony Dungy to say, I don't want the distraction of a gay guy. The experiment has already been tried and true. Wasn't really a distraction.
But that was around that whole time when Oprah was talking about doing that feature on him.
Yeah, and they nixed it.
Which later on they ended up killing it. But that was around that time when he made that statement. Because I remember when he made the statement, and I mean, to a certain degree, I mean, at that point, and about like I said, with the OWN network trying to follow him and all that, I felt like that part might have been a distraction.
Nah, it's still bullcrap. No, it's not. Ain't nobody coming in here. Like this stuff is happening up until the Steve Gleason thing in the Bounty Gate situation. That stuff has been happening in the NFL for forever and ever. Documentaries being made about teams and camera crews following guys around. Yeah, forever and ever. So what? So then we boil it down once again to the fact that he's gay, because that's what it's about then. Because if NFL teams have gone through it before on multiple occasions, and it hadn't been a distraction then, why now then? The only outside factor is that the person in question is homosexual. So yeah, and again, we can't get past the fact that Tony Dungy is admitted he's a Jesus freak. But in order to toe that line, like he don't want. I can only make the assumption that his beliefs is that homosexuality, as it is stated in the Bible, is an abomination. But he can't go out and say that, right? So he's got to code it. The same way all these other things are coded. You know what I mean? When people are talking about young black men, I talked about it the other day, right? Where John Wall gets into a situation not John Wall. See, there I go. One of his partners gets into it with somebody on a plane. That person becomes a victim. Johnny Manziel throws a bottle at somebody full of water, not an empty bottle, full of water, and it becomes, I don't even know why we're even talking about this. This is a non-story. And in some kind of way, the guy is at fault. Yeah, he's a douchebag, whatever, because no grown man should be chasing another grown man around for 2 hours. First of all, you shouldn't be chasing another grown man around, period, for no autograph. But then 2 hours is way excessive. But whatever. You can't let one off the hook and not the other one. So it's the same thing to me. It's coding. Oh, distraction. Nah, NFL locker rooms are the least place in the world that are virgins to distractions. Every time you turn around, something happens. You know what I mean? Like, this dude had pictures on his Instagram yesterday, and today of a girl beaten up. The best RG3 could say, Robert Griffith III could say is, well, we just all hope it didn't really happen. Yeah, crickets, nothing. Yeah, and I mean, that's cool, but Jason Collins calling this spade a spade, my man, do that. You know what I mean? Do that. Because if what happens is that gives people permission that gives everyone else permission to use that excuse then. You see what I'm saying? Without coming out and letting their true intentions be known, not everyone can use that same excuse. And now every kid that is playing ball, basketball, football, whatever, that's in a position where he's excelling in athletics and could possibly become a professional, there's no way in hell. There's no way in hell he comes out and says he's gay. Now, if you want to make some real money, hell no. Because they're going to treat it like the dude had like 4 drug arrests. It's like gay equals like drug arrest, domestic abuse or something. You know, it's going to be a red flag. One of those, those red flags they always talking about. Yeah, it's going to be one of those. Being gay would be a red flag. Yeah. So the fact that, like, Jason Collins calling this dude out because it's not an easy thing to do because everybody loves Tony Dungy. You know, he's everybody's favorite guy. But the one thing, and because he's such a nice dude, or he comes, I don't know Tony Dungy, he comes off as such a nice dude, like people just kind of forget about the fact that he had a child that committed suicide himself.
Suicide, yeah.
No one ever asked any questions. No one ever asked, you know, and maybe because you don't want to be that guy. You know what I mean? Figure out like what's going on in your house. Because I talked to you guys yesterday about something that really hit me hard. The amount, and I'm not saying Tony Dungy's son was gay. I don't know him. I don't know his family, any of that stuff. But I talked to you guys about the numbers that are attached to young black teenagers and at what rate gay and trans teenagers are committing suicide in this country. You know what I mean? And it would seem like everything else in Tony Dungy's life was copacetic. A successful football coach, a beautiful wife, bunch of beautiful kids. They always at the game on the sidelines and all this kind of stuff. And then one day you turn around and boom, this dude, his son is dead by his own hands. That's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I remember. I remember when that happened, and I was just like, "Wow!" Like, but you never know what people going through.
You don't.
I mean, you know, I always say that. You know, like you just never know. And the one thing I ain't gonna lie, man. You know, there's a lot of stuff, you know, that I have learned. You know, about the world, about people, about myself, everything in these past 7 months, you know, from me being unemployed to being employed. Like, you know, anytime somebody tell me, like, you know, they really going through something, like, I listen, you know. And not to say that there's nobody listen to that kid, but, I mean, you just never know, man.
Yeah.
You just never know.
So I'm not going to really get into the article from yesterday about the stats. One of the things that Jason Collins did say, though, that was eye-opening, that his fear of coming out, and because of the fact that a lot of the guys in the locker room would use what are termed as homophobic slurs, and you know how we talk sometimes. Well, maybe people don't know how, but you know, guys get around and we talk craziness, and we use like the F word, and you know, we call people sissies and pansies and all this kind of stuff. And he was fearful that, you know, these people who were using these words so casually wouldn't accept him, so he never came out. But then, you know, the next paragraph, he was kind of happy to realize that after he did come out, those same people, it wasn't to be worried about. You know what I mean? People, because it's like anything else. You know, you curse, but your pastor walk into the room, you stop. Oh, you know, out of reverence or respect or whatever it is, if you respect a person, sexuality to the side, if you respect that person, you respect them, and you'll curtail your behavior based on that. I got a homeboy, one of my closest friends, the best dude that I know. He's a pastor, right? When I'm talking to him, because I am who I am, like, yeah, a curse word or two, but I don't like it ain't like me talking to Rob, is what I'm saying. And y'all haven't heard me, like, you hear me Monday through Friday talking to Rob, but y'all ain't heard me talk to Rob. You feel me? But just out of respect for my dude, he know who I am. And it ain't one of those things where I'm being fake, but just because he is who he is, he's not judging me if I did just talk regularly to him. But just out of respect for him, I don't. You know, I don't just let them rip. You know, they come out. Yeah, they do.
But ain't that something? But ain't that something when you talking to somebody that's a pastor, or even if it is your homeboy? Because I find myself in that same situation where I say something and I'd be like, "Oops, I eat it." You know, like it's
because
crazy.
We're homeboy. I mean, because we're homeboy. Because we're human, and people want to always make excuses that they can't control certain things. Yes, you can. Be an adult. You know, you're not a baby. Be an adult. You can control it. You control it when you want to. Oh, man, she just made me so mad. I just punched her in the face. You're an idiot. That's what you are. You're an idiot. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I hate leaving, especially not just the show, but the week on such a heavy note. But, you know, it happens, man. You know, life happens, and the whole show is based upon the fact that no subject matter is off limits. and it's not just sports, man. So it happens.